Okay, so you know how trade deals are always like making headlines and everyone's debating, who's winning and who's losing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a hot topic.
Right. Well, this recent statement by Trump really caught our eye.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of what we're going to like deep dive into today.
Okay, sounds good.
So we're looking at what he said about the USMCA trade agreement,
Okay,
specifically like how it kind of clashes with what he used to say about it.
interesting.
And the source we're using is this transcript from a Ring of Fire video on YouTube.
Gotcha.
So basically what we want to do is like break down, the main points of what Trump said
Hmm.
and how that like compares to his previous stance on the USMCA,
Right.
and then kind of see, what it all means basically.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes. What exactly did he say this time that's causing such a stir?
Well, so he called the USMCA something that like some idiot signed years ago
Wow.
and was like questioning who would sign such a bad deal.
That's pretty harsh. But isn't that...
And here's the thing. The transcript points out that the idiot he's talking about
Yeah.
is actually himself.
Oh, wow. So he's basically criticizing his own decision.
Yeah, he signed the USMCA into law, remember?
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a pretty big deal at the time.
And this is the same agreement that he used to call the best agreement we've ever had.
Talk about a complete 180. I wonder what prompted this change of heart.
Right. It's a pretty big shift. So the video's saying, now he's claiming that other countries, like, took advantage of the U.S. with this agreement,
In what way?
especially when it comes to manufacturing.
Interesting.
He's basically saying he doesn't understand how anyone could have signed it.
So essentially, he's implying he didn't fully grasp the deal when he signed it,
That's kind of what the Ring of Fire video is getting at.
that he wasn't smart enough to see the implications.
Yeah, but, there could be other ways to interpret what he said.
True, there are always multiple perspectives to consider.
So the transcript then goes on to talk about, the supposed downsides of the USMCA.
Like what specifically?
The argument is that it allowed companies to move American jobs to like Canada and Mexico without any penalties or tariffs.
Oh, so hurting U.S. manufacturing in the process.
Right.
It's important to remember, though, that the actual impact of trade deals like this is always up for debate. Economists and policymakers have different views on how these things actually play out in reality.
For sure. So then the video talks about, tariffs
Okay.
as a possible solution,
Right.
but they're saying that Trump's proposed tariffs probably won't really fix anything.
And might even hurt American consumers in the process.
Exactly. Like tariffs often mean higher prices for things we buy,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Companies have to pass those costs on somewhere, and it usually ends up being the consumer who foots the bill.
So the Ring of Fire video's conclusion is pretty bold.
What do they say?
They're saying that Trump probably knows deep down that the tariffs won't solve the problems with the USMCA. But he just can't admit he made a mistake with the agreement.
So it's all about saving face.
Kinda, yeah.
It's a fascinating situation, isn't it? I mean, here we have a former president basically trashing a big trade deal that he himself pushed for and signed.
Yeah, it's definitely a head scratcher.
He's saying he's confused by the terms of the deal, suggesting it's bad for America. And implicitly, he's also kind of questioning his own judgment back then.
It really makes you think about these international trade agreements and just how complicated they are.
Totally. And, it makes you think about what happens when something that was once considered the best deal ever is now seen as a mistake. Like, what does that say about the decisions made by leaders? And what about the long-term consequences? It's really something to ponder.
It definitely raises some questions about how these things play out in the long run.
It does, and I think it's a conversation worth having.
Absolutely.